Warhammer 40K survived an onslaught from the DEI initiatives that are taking over everything. But how did it do it? It was something that it looks like it should have been taken over years ago. BlackRock became a majority investor 2 years ago. So why is it taking so much time for them to finally start subtly implementing these changes like the female Adeptus Custodes to their game? And what it comes down to, long story short, I guess I'll spoil the video here, you. But there's more to it than that, and there's a wonderful article we're going to go over about this, which I've been promising for a couple of days, and I'm very happy to talk about this because I think this is good information, and I love talking about these important things and kind of the global landscape of what's happening overall. This is my book, Overmind. My name's John Delarose. I'm a #1 best-selling author, award-winning comic creator, and Overmind is all about fighting against AI hive mind. It's very poignant in today's world. This is a graphic novel. If you are familiar with like Valerian and Laureline, the old Bands Dessiné comics, we've worked to do a style that's very retro and kind of regressive towards the golden age of what comics used to be. And this takes place in a Terran Imperium where there's a benevolent emperor of humanity, and things are kind of falling apart because of just too much. I'd say. Like today's world, too much. Everybody's too rich and fat and happy, and so it's very easy for decay to exist then. And our heroine is trying to fight in that. Now we're developing this into a much bigger franchise now. I'm energized, and I've developed a new Space Marine concept that's going to spin out of this, and I'm going to have a full male Space Marine unit that's going to spin out of this. So get in here. We're going to have a second book in this series as a comic. There's novels also, and that's going to be on Kickstarter in a couple months. This is the spot to start, so you can be ready for that. And then when the Space Marines hit, oh my gosh, the preliminary designs I have, which I'm not going to post yet, are beautiful, and I'm so excited to bring something completely different and completely contrary to what's happening in the zeitgeist for all these woke corporations. Check this out. This link's in the description below, delarose.com. I'm selling these books on my website. There's digital versions too. If you're overseas, don't want to pay for shipping or whatnot, you can grab that. Thank you so much for the support over the last week. You guys have come in hard on the books. And of course, because Warhammer fans are about the lore. And so we're going to create our own lore now rather than relying on these people. Now, I saw this meme the other day, and this kind of is an old meme, an oldie but a goodie, and it's applying today. They hit Star Wars, they hit Lord of the Rings, they hit Marvel, and now they're coming for Warhammer 40K. And it's poignant because this is exactly what happened. It's been Warhammer seemed to last longer than these other franchises, and it's because the other franchises really, they have their dedicated fan bases, but they were much easier to take over by normies, mainly because of the corporations that own them. You got Amazon and you got Disney that are already just like ready to go on that. Versus Warhammer, which was really not primed for this at all. And so this is an article called In the Grim Darkness of 2024, There is Only War by Isaac Young. I'll put his link in the description too, because definitely a Substack worth following. I don't know this guy, I just like this article. And so here it is, the last Ultramarine. Since the first 10,000, there were always female custodians. There's a nice meme based on this. Now, Warhammer really got popular. It's always been popular, but it really hit the cultural zeitgeist in 2016 because the memes started coming out then. And these Warhammer memes were used in part of what we like to call the Great Meme War. And a lot of Warhammer memes got used with Trump putting him as God Emperor. And that really, I think had a big impact on the election because it's really visceral imagery. And it got people to rally pretty well. And Warhammer really got into the cultural zeitgeist at that point. And so this fellow here says, it's a matter of when, not if, when wokeness comes to claim your hobby. And this is if your hobby is owned by a corporation, right? So this is why we're trying to promote independent things now. It has toppled every franchise and IP, and the real problem is franchise and IP, right? I can go off on our copyright system and how it just destroys things and is geared towards corporations for hours. I can rant on that, but I'll do it another time. You guys are smart people. You know exactly what's happening. Defacing and vandalizing all with the same calls for diversity, inclusion, and representation. It becomes tiresome after a while hearing the same arguments made verbatim across all entertainment. That's the irony of all this to me, is that it's always about diversity. And yet, why does all diversity look the same? How is diversity a monolith? How is everything exactly the same? Very, very weird. How diversity is not diversity at all. If you had diversity, you'd have male-centric things like Warhammer. You'd have female-centric things like Barbie. You'd have, whatever the they/them's like. I don't know. I don't even want to look that up. And you'd have your black culture. You'd have your white culture. They'd be separate but equal. That's what diversity is. But blending everything all together so it's all one homogenous thing is not diverse. It's where everything looks the same. It's all the same corporate schlock. And that's why we're all so frustrated and fed up at this point. We're sick of it. And you see they have the same tax every single time. Why are you afraid of women? This is not a big deal. It's very reminiscent. Star Wars is a franchise about space wizards. In my mind, it's one of the ugliest tactics the left will play. Even as they make a big deal about adding representation, they will stomp on fans and say they should accept it because it's not a big deal. It's just childish. These are child's things. Just let it go. And that's what they do. If it was silly and childish, the left would not have bothered to begin with. The rank-and-file leftists are an interesting story. Their unofficial job is to run cover for these changes, make up obfuscating arguments, crying out for their own representation, and demoralizing and insulting the masses they fail to get their way. They're the ultimate gaslighters, creating problems that don't exist so companies can excusably kowtow to their customers. Quote, and it's definitely in quotes because these people never buy anything. You know that. The woke have no money. That's why they're angry. They are here to convince you that what is happening is all the will of the masses. And if they can't do that, they beat you down to make you think your hobbies aren't worth fighting for. And we've seen it every time. It's not the will of the masses. It's the will of a very vocal minority who's loud and screeches the loudest. And that's it. The masses don't want this. They just tune out and leave the hobbies and just go, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm just going to go back to my job, go back to my family. Go touch grass or something, because that's what normal people do. They're just like, I don't want to be around this. Certainly don't want my kids around this. And they just leave. It's hard. It's really hard. And then you're left and we're left because we want to fight for this, but the masses there are just not willing to fight. It's really sad. I think things are starting to change though, honestly. I always talk about Target and Bud Light last year. Those are two boycotts that made a major difference. And I think Games Workshop's going to get shook. I've heard reports right here that Games Workshop now is losing 30,000 subs of their Warhammer Plus. I don't have a confirmation of that. As soon as I get a confirmation, I'll report on it. But oh my gosh, if that's true, that's nuts. In 2024, we learned the lesson: all entertainment is important, no matter how childish or silly it seems. So why do they do it? It's to flex, to say the thing that you love is no longer yours. It's ours. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's correct. That's what they want to do. And you see, here's the shareholder statistics with BlackRock and Vanguard taking over. And they had 3% of the company. And it was a long time coming, as this article says. So he says, I'm not interested in covering the defeat. Warhammer is not remarkable because it's turning woke. It's remarkable because it's still turning woke and that it hasn't really happened yet. So why did it last as long as it did? And this is really interesting. So he defines what wokeness is. We can pass all that because we know what it is. We know it all looks alike. We know what the deal is. Warhammer was resistant to the left for so long because it's a universe unintentionally founded itself on very basic truths of mankind. This is really interesting about the lore. And it presented those truths in such an obvious way that it was next to impossible for the left to deny. It's difficult for the woke to corrupt a property that outright acknowledges how the woke corrupts IPs to begin with. Let's raise a few examples. In 40Ks, there's Chaos Gods, in which they're a sci-fi equivalent of the devil. The woke can try to depict heroic gay romances and represent obese persons, but anyone with common sense, these narratives ultimately twist themselves into corruptions of Slaanesh and Nurgle. In outlining the existence of hell, the right now has the vocabulary to section off leftist-controlled portions of the narratives. Interesting. You might have an aesthetic character, but when the God Emperor of mankind is raising up saints, the character goes from noble objector to skeptic fool. When you have a definite good and evil in a fictional universe, it becomes ever more difficult for the left to pervert. So superheroes, Marvel, and you're like, aren't they good versus evil? It's really not. If you look at the way that superheroes are done, it's really a personal thing. And if you look at the way that superheroes have their morals and have for a long, long time, because they've been properties that are all about creating an IP that's ongoing forever, the only moral any of the superheroes have is, I will not kill no matter the cost. And you see this, and it's absurd to look at, because you see Batman fighting the Joker for the umpteenth time after the Joker's now killed hundreds of thousands of people over all these comics. And he's like, the one thing I will never do, Joker, is kill, because then I'd be like you. It's like, wait a minute, if you just killed the Joker, you would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives, and this all would be over. Now, the reason they don't kill them is just something stupid, that they just want the IP to continue, and so they can tell another Joker story next month, so that you buy it because the Joker's something to be a brand that you can remember. But but they try to make that into a false morality, and that means there is no morality, because like Batman's not even willing to do what it takes to like actually make his city safe, even though his mission is the city being safe. That's not the case in Warhammer. We know that. People die. A lot of people die, and they don't just come back next week like they do in the comic books. And that makes it like a much realer universe than these others. You can pervert Star Wars because Star Wars is just a quasi-Buddhist adventure. That's right. What happens with the Jedi are all about non-interference, about just like not even lifting a finger, because at the end, then they're going to attain enlightenment. They're not the good guys. They're just idiots. What if we can create fictional universes so grounded in the obvious that realities in any leftist interpretations can be canonically discarded as a sham? It's so great. And that's what I'm trying to do. And so it is a creation that resists that just because of its inherent lore. And that's why it's so important to tell stories that have objective good and evils, that present real heroes with real objective missions that are really doing things for the benefit of mankind, that hold mankind as somebody created in the image of God. Because when you have universal truths, you have good and evil. You have good stories because of that. When you don't have universal truths, you have bad stories. You have nihilism. So that's what we're trying to do here as well. I loved this article because it just hit that nail right on the head and shows exactly where Warhammer was right, why it's going wrong now because of the people in charge that are nihilistic. They don't understand good and evil, and they actually hate these properties because they show good and evil. And that's why we need independent alternatives going forward. All right, leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Love to interact with you on this one. This is a deeper story than you're going to hear about much of the Warhammer coverage on YouTube. And this is the type of audience I want to cultivate. So I want to interact with smart people who get it. Hit that like and subscribe button. Really appreciate you being there. Make sure to check out Overmind on my website. It's in the description below. We've got a subscribe star as well. Got an Amazon page, and a lot of you bought a lot of copies of my books this week, and I appreciate it. I will always do my best to honor what you guys want and try to present good and evil on true terms. We'll be back soon.